Or
No.
okay, I've got the
Oh,
camera right in front of your face on
oh,
my
like
desk
little
so I can
webcam.
see you.
Yes. No. It looks perfect. Okay. So let me real quick. I do this every week because I'm always nervous that it's not actually okay, we are showing. Okay, perfect. So thank you. Well, hey, modern marketing for Facebook. I mean, for real estate agents. Hi, Candice Shepard. Thank you so much for joining us. I keep messing up the spelling of your name because I always know Shepard. I remember the E and the A. So then I keep writing Candace with the A instead of
Yeah.
the I. So I apologize in advance.
No worries.
But thanks for joining us. So tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm so excited. We've been Facebook friends for a while,
I
and
know.
you're so fun and interesting. So this is cool. I'm glad we got the opportunity to sit down and chat.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me. I have been an attorney for coming up on 24 years, and I started out as a litigator and did a lot of hard things. And then when my family moved to North Carolina, I decided to focus on transactional work. So in North Carolina, I do real estate planning, probate, business law, and we have a great team there. So I don't personally do all of that. I am a single mom of 4 kiddos. I have 2 girls who are 21 and 19. I have 2 boys who are 17 and 16, and everything that goes with that. It's so fun. A menagerie of critters in our house: dogs and cats and hamsters and whatever. I mean, what else? I'm a life coach. I'm an author, international speaker. Um,
You're just a little bit of everything. I
I,
love it. I think you're same. Isn't it so funny how you're friends with people on Facebook and it's like you know them and then you have to like not be a weirdo when you see them like how do
right.
you book
We're
sales?
totally friends.
Exactly. They're like, how'd you know I wrote a book? I'm like, oh, sorry. I thought we were cool like that. So
Yeah.
yes, I love watching your stuff. I was at any time like people say single mom, whatever. I was a single mom for 9 years. So best years. Oh my God. They were the best. And it's like such like precious, moments with the kids. So
Mhm.
anyway, every time I'm like, oh, I love that time.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you were a litigator first. So what? Well, first of all, explain litigator because the only law I know is criminal law because I'm one of those true crime weirdos.
Yeah.
Tell us what is litigation and then kind of what made you what
Yeah.
was that switch?
Well, litigation is everything in the courtroom. And I started out as a prosecutor, and then so prosecuting the bad guys. And then
Okay.
I went on to do a clerkship with the courthouse. And I have trouble with straight black and white. I see all the shades of gray. So criminal prosecution was challenging for me because there's a lot of shades of gray in there that should change the outcome, and prosecutors don't have that luxury. You did it or you didn't. So I went to the defense side, and I worked for a firm that we were affectionately known as Kitty Law in where I was, in the town I was in Kansas City, because everything we did affected the life of a child. So I did juvenile offender, child in need of care, divorce custody, if it involved custody, domestic violence, like all of that hard stuff. If there was a child that was going to be impacted by the case, we would take the case. Did a lot of education law. And the reason I pivoted out of that is part of our practice. If your case is impacting a child, there are parents involved. So on occasion, I was appointed by the court to represent a parent. I was appointed to represent a very bad man who was in federal prison for 7 consecutive life sentences, meaning if he lived 7 lives, he still wouldn't get out of prison ever. And he threatened my children. He told me where they went to daycare, and he told me my address. Like, he knew things about my family that he shouldn't have known, and he threatened my family. And I'm like, I got to be done. I had 2 little girls, and I said, I just got to be done with this. So yeah.
So
So
real estate law seemed a little safer.
it's dramatically different. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
dramatically different.
Oh my gosh. So kind of what is I'm curious, like, what are the ins and outs of like your day to day? I know that we as realtors, we just show up for like the closing, and I've had a couple of closings with you. And I love that and I'm not just saying this just to say it, like, you are really one of the only lawyers that I've dealt with, or attorneys I've dealt with here, that I feel like I will have asked a question. Like, I had a client that was buying a piece of land last year. The guy, or a couple of years ago, the owner had a deed restriction on it because he did not want anyone to build multifamily. So there were some questions around it that they had, understandably. And you were so like helpful and just shooting me a message or shooting me an email. And that means a lot, because a lot of times you have to kind of like run this whole thing to get answers. So
Right.
like your day to day, what kind of are you actually doing?
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, because that's purposeful, right? So when I decided I wasn't going to litigate anymore, and I took a few years off to sort of reevaluate what I wanted to do, spend some time with my kiddos, and figure things out, I actually decided that real estate in North Carolina, first of all, is very different from everywhere else in the world. I mean, I think you guys all know that.
Yeah.
But when I decided to pivot and do that work, I actually got licensed as a realtor, and I'm gonna do air quotes, because I sold real estate for about a year, just so I could sort of get your perspective on it, because it's perspective is everything. You don't know what you don't know, and I wanted, if I was going to completely change my life's work, I wanted to make sure that I was doing it right. So when I went into this practice of law, I wanted to know the people I was serving and understand what their challenges were, and so that gave me a lot of perspective on what you guys do. First of all, I was terrible at it. I was terrible at it, but it also gave me the insight to know, hey, look, if they need an answer, they need an answer. And I didn't feel like it was fair to you to not be accessible to answer those questions, because I have a skill set, and I have a knowledge base that you don't have and you shouldn't have. Right. And if you're working with me, it's because you trust me with your clients and your business, and that's a big deal. So that's purposeful, that we make time to make sure our realtors are served, from answering questions whenever you have them, to making sure there's snacks in our office, because you guys don't eat if we don't feed you sometimes. So,
and you guys have a coffee machine, which any closing attorney that has a coffee machine there. And every time we walk in, and it's funny because I want to get into how it's all a female run thing, but so I'm from up north, New York. Up there, having coffee is like a big thing, right?
yeah.
So it's like, come over for cake and coffee. And when I notice here, it's not like part of the culture. So you don't go into a lot of places, they're like, you want a cup of coffee? But in Shepard Law, every time you walk in, they're like, you want a cup of coffee? And I'm like, say no more.
Done and done. Yeah.
I love you guys. Yeah. So it's those little things that really make you memorable and make a big difference.
I appreciate that. That's good to know.
So, yeah.
Well, and part of that is that female touch, right? We're females are automatic nurturers and servants, and so we want to make sure that when you come in to our office, that you feel cared for.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Okay. So let's get into that. So I love this, because I'm like, who run the world? But was it intentional that you started this all female real estate office, or did it just start going like that, and then you were like, hey, let's run with it?
So yes and no. As I was starting up in the real estate realm, I did some overflow work for an attorney, and I did some office share with an attorney, and that was all female. So I learned a lot from them and how I wanted to run things in my world. And when the light rail was going in, our offices were going to be torn down. So I had to make a decision. Do I want to stay part-time, small, etc., or do I want to go all in and all out? And I argued with God for a very long time because I didn't want to work that hard. I had other things I wanted to do, but the nudge was definitely go do this thing and do it right. Law is a very, very male-dominated profession. I think everybody knows that. Real estate is largely female driven. So when I decided to do the firm, my intention was that it was going to be not your daddy's law firm, and what that meant to me is that I was going to lead like a woman. I was going to nurture and care for my clients and my agents with my unique skill set. I wasn't going to try and change who I was to fit that attorney mold that you see everywhere. And we were going to be very focused on service. And all of that to say that it was not intentional we're not trying to keep men out of our office. Right. We've had men in our office that have worked for us. The few that I've had, some have been very, very good and have just moved on for other reasons. The ones who have left under not great circumstances are because they couldn't serve under a woman. They couldn't adjust their ego to be led by a female and to implement that service model that I expect from my staff. Right. So it was intentional, but it was not intentional. Is more just being true to what to honoring my femaleness and the gifts that I have because of my because of who I am. So
yeah. Right. And it allows you, I think, to kind of even like within your office to sort of like lead in a certain way and then to serve your clients in a certain way that's different from others. And I'm on the NAREP board, Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. You've done a lot. So you also, I notice, have a fairly diverse group of females, which is nice because similarly, not all home buyers are of one color, right? Even more so Hispanics. I only know the data on Hispanics because I'm on this board, but Hispanic home ownership is increasing a ton every year and is going to do even more so. So there are law offices across the area, and there's even subsets of within the real estate industry, like mortgage and appraisers and all that were previously really underrepresented as far as like the Latino population, and it's building up. And that's one thing in yours, that it's a fairly diverse staff of not just staff, but also attorneys.
Right.
So love that.
Well, we hire for talent first and personality. We want to make sure that the humans that are in our space are good people. But I love it when that can cross over to other demographics because you don't necessarily. Sometimes you need to see somebody who looks like you, and I totally get that.
Yeah, and it's just a sign of kind of like the way culture is changing. And I don't remember growing up, at least where we grew up, there weren't many even Hispanics on TV besides like Ricky Ricardo, and now, even on TV or now in business and leadership, I mean, it's just a sign of the time. So it's reflected in,
well, and I mean, we all coexist and we depend on each other and we rely on each other and we care about each other. So why not honor that in the workplace?
Yeah. And everyone kind of has something to learn from each other. So
absolutely.
Which is why I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what, as you know, in your practice, because you're not just an attorney, you also own the practice. I think you have
Right.
2 offices.
No, actually, we had 4, but we consolidated to Charlotte this year and decided just to
Oh my goodness.
consolidate to one space. So yeah,
Oh,
we're just in North Charlotte now.
oh, okay, North Charlotte. Okay, so but still big practice. So you're also like a business owner and
Yeah.
you're running this big practice.
Yeah.
What do you think is like the number one thing that has contributed to your successness to be able to grow a firm? I assume it's hard.
Can you say that last part?
No,
You
I was
glitched.
saying I assume it's hard to do to be a business owner and you have the real estate aspect and hiring and all that, and then you also
Yeah.
have the law.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it ain't easy. Let's start there. It's not easy. Hard work and humility are really what it's about because I will tell you every single day that I am never the most important person in the room ever. It doesn't matter whose name is on the wall. If I walk into a room, I am not the most important person in the room. I work for you, and I work for my staff and the clients that trust us with their stuff. I work for them. So a lot of humility and recognizing that this is a hard job and that's okay. I can do hard things, and we're going to get it done. So yeah, hard work and humility. That's it. It's super simple.
love it. So one of the things when we were talking beforehand or on the form you filled out, you said a lot of people think real estate law is boring. And I admit I've been at closings before, and the guy or the in your case, the
Mhm.
female is going through, 40 pages,
Right.
and it looks pretty boring,
Right.
right? Or like you said, some people also assume it's easy because all you're seeing as the realtor is
Mhm.
the end game. So they're just going
Right.
there and sign this page, sign this page. So explain to us why both of those are incorrect assumptions.
Well, so by the time it gets to the table, we want it to look like it was easy and boring, right? We don't want to put all of that trauma and challenge and difficulty getting to the table. We don't want to put that on you. We it's our job to fix it to make sure it's right. But what makes it not boring and not simple and there's a human dynamic, right? Every transaction has 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different personalities involved in it. So there's a whole lot of EQ that goes into managing that transaction. But especially now, I have found that every time there is an imbalance of power or a shift in the balance of power, meaning we are shifting now from a seller market to a buyer market, as far as who holds the power dynamic, and so that shift is causing some challenges. We have a large a large generational gap where the folks who own a good bit of the property are starting to age and pass away. So we've got a lot of those issues. A lot of especially in this area, a lot of family dynamics that are being unraveled. So there's on a daily basis, there's something that needs to be fixed. From either the perspective of somebody's upset and we need to talk them off the ledge and explain the process to them, or there's a problem with the title, or there's a problem with the property, or there's a problem with the ownership, or somebody has passed away, or something has to be fixed. And I'm a doer and a fixer and a get stuff done kind of person. So that to me is really interesting. It takes a lot of time.
Right. And it's similar to just being on the realtor side of the transaction or pretty much anyone within the transaction. Like sometimes, you just have those transactions that are just happen to be easy. Everything
Right.
flows smoothly, whatever. And then sometimes you have those that you show up at the table like battered and bruised from plowing through. And I mean, it's funny. I've sat with closing attorneys that have told me some wild stories
Oh
of
yeah.
just things that would happen during the
Mhm.
transaction, and
Yeah.
someone might be married to someone else and then they
Right.
didn't know, and it's
Mhm.
this whole thing. So
Yeah.
basically by the time, no matter how crazy it is, by the time you guys get it to the signing, it's smooth.
There's been some stuff that we've had to work through, but we want it to look easy by the time we get it to the table.
Exactly. So not boring at all. When you think about all the what ownership in a home means, I would imagine it's probably really interesting. I think people think boring because they think like meets and bounds and stuff, but
Right.
it's really like the soap opera of
Right.
home ownership.
Yeah, the sign here, sign here, sign here. That's the least of our concern.
Right. Yes. That's, oh my gosh. Okay. So this is what, like, I'm so interested in your firm. Oh, and by the way, my shirt says empowered women, empower
women. I love it. I love it.
Wore that just for this. Okay. So I was really interested in the law, but what I'm really interested in, and I think, 8,000 agents in here would be interested in, is talk to me more about estate planning, what we should be doing, what we should have set up. I recently have a family friend who she had moved down here, older lady, and her kind of in that older, I don't want to say, there's an older set of people where the man controls all the finances. Right. She was okay with that. She had resigned herself because he was paying the bills. Mm-hmm. Now he left, moved back up north. Ooh. He was still paying the bills. And I told her, because I've been through divorce, you need to go to a divorce attorney, just get whatever you need to protect yourself financially in the house, whatever. She, for whatever reason, didn't do that. Then he unexpectedly passed away. So now she's in this house that her name is on the deed, but not on the mortgage. She has no idea who even holds the mortgage.
Okay.
So it's basically a mess, right? And I'm sure that when someone died, she doesn't even know where his money is. She has no access to his bank account. He died with family. It's a whole big thing.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that as agents, we are constantly coming across situations like this. Or because we work for ourselves, a lot of times we don't think to have our stuff set up.
Right.
So tell us about what is the protection everyone needs. You know it. I don't even know how to ask the question, but you know
that's
it.
Okay. That's what I'm here for. Yes. I got you.
Yes.
So you hit on two very distinct things from the realtor's perspective. And first I'll talk about, if it's okay with you, I'll take a few minutes to talk about the, what do you do when you're representing somebody in that scenario? So, and I actually have a class called Selling the Property of a Dead Guy, which it's been a very popular class over the last 5 years because, and I think it's going to continue to be more and more and more important to know this. As an agent, what do I do when I walk into a listing appointment and Joe Smith's name is on the deed, but I'm sitting there with Mary Morrison? There's a lot of ins and outs that go with that. So if you're going to represent a seller who has a deceased owner on the title, or if you're going to represent the buyer who's purchasing a property where there's a deceased owner, there's a lot of moving parts there that you might want to make sure are in line. Number one, so you're not committing malpractice, or I'm not sure what you guys call it.
Like misrepresentation.
Yeah, so you're not screwing up, right? You don't want to mess this up, but you don't necessarily know what you don't know. And number two, so that you don't get to the closing date and go, oh gosh, we can't close because my client doesn't own it, or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of things that you can do ahead of time to get in front of those issues. And they're really too voluminous to go. I mean, it's an hour-long class, so I'm not going to go through all the ins and outs.
Someone said that they're interested in it, so we'll get you that link after this.
Okay,
sure, we'll put it in the comments. But I'm sorry, awesome. So go ahead.
No, that's great. But as a practitioner, as a professional who's representing humans who are in these scenarios, there's a whole lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that you need to be aware of in order to make sure that you're doing your job in a way that's not going to get you in trouble, and also not going to kill your deal, so that you don't put in hours and hours and hours of work and then not get paid for the work you've done because you can't, right? So there's a whole lot of pieces to that, and that's a whole long class. But it's good to know that it's the first step, I think, is being aware that, hey, these are coming up a lot. Number one, there's a lot of money to be made in if you get really good in that space. But number two, in the off chance that one just happens to show up at your door, you want to know what you're doing so that you can not waste your time spinning your wheels to not finish a closing.
Right. I that's one of those things that you don't want to fake it till you make it. Because
no, actually it is okay
it's a lot.
if you've got the other pieces in place. If you've got a Candace that can walk you through it, if you've got the basic knowledge of, hey, Candace mentioned that if somebody's name is on the deed who's not sitting in the room with me, I need to ask these questions. So I'm going to ask these questions, then I'm going to take it to my attorney, and Candace will tell us what we need to do. Because it's also one of those things that every situation in that situation is different from the last situation you dealt with. So you need to have a basic understanding, a foundational understanding, and then from there you have to get legal involved. Right. So,
oh my gosh.
But you can get that foundational knowledge and look very, very well prepared.
Yes. Yeah. With your class. So we will start. Let's start there, because it's good. It's also like I'm always telling people on the marketing side, niche down, right? So if you really, let's say if you're interested in this kind of side of the business, if you really kind of get in and get known for that, it could probably be very lucrative.
Yeah. The greatest generation is getting older every day, and they also have a lot of assets. So you don't want to let that piece slide.
So speaking of assets, so do you feel like, how are people generally with now having their assets protected? Are people going without?
That was the second part of that question that you just raised. How do you as humans who own businesses make sure that your stuff is protected, that your assets are protected, that your family is protected? And that's a really, especially as business owners, that's a really important thing to take care of. So every single person in America needs an estate plan. 68% of Americans do not have one. 82% of Hispanic Americans don't have one. Yet 94% of Black Americans don't have one. So it's a big issue, but it's a solvable issue, and it's not something to be ashamed of, because there's a lot of people that don't have one. That it's totally normal. Nobody wants to think about this. We don't want to think about what happens if I die. I never
even heard of one until I am the Hispanic population. My husband's the Black population. I literally never heard of it until I got into this side of the world.
Yeah. Well, and it's, there is no shame in it. Nobody wants to think about this. What happens when I die? Because there's two things for sure: death and taxes. Right. So my thought is, let's get in front of it. And when we do the plan together, we figure things out, we set it down in paper, we throw it in our fireproof safe, and then we leave it alone. We go about living our lives. You don't have to keep revisiting it all the time. We're going to set you up so you know that your kids are taken care of if you pass, that your business is going to come to a neat and tidy ending and things like that. The other part of it that's really important is, what happens if something catastrophic happens to you where you're living, but you're incapacitated, but you're going to recover? So part of your estate plan is protecting you in that scenario, right? So when you recover, you want to be able to come back to a viable business. You don't want to have that fall apart while you're recovering because you didn't put the pieces into place to make sure it stayed viable. And then the third part, when you have children, what's going to happen to my kids if something happens to me, especially as moms? I mean, dads are very, very, very important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not minimizing that, but as moms, especially single moms, we have to take care of that. That's not optional.
Right. So the pieces of the estate plan really cover kind of like your end of life, like basically whatever you have in your net, whatever you've accumulated, your estate plan covers where where all that is going.
So each estate plan is as unique as the human that's creating it. But there are certain pieces of the estate plan that almost everybody has. And that's a will, a durable power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, the end of life instructions. And a lot of people, especially those of you with businesses, so everybody on this podcast, have a trust as well. And then you, Sarah, have young children, so you're also going to have guardianship provisions for your kiddos.
Right. Okay. Oh my gosh. It makes me.
Does it give you heart palpitations?
Yeah, but it's funny because it gives me heart palpitations, especially with my older two were much smaller.
Yeah.
And I was by myself too.
Yeah.
I was like, what would happen? And it's so stupid now that I think about it. But sometimes the fear of just thinking about what would happen keeps you from
preparing
for it.
Well, and that is so, like, that's the biggest reason people give me for why they haven't done it yet. And I get it. I do understand. I do understand it, but you're not inviting tragedy to come by preparing for it. But what we're going to do is we're going to prepare for the worst, and then we're going to go live our best life.
Right. And you're kind of saving them from, it's drama afterwards, because the worst is when someone dies and now everyone's fighting over.
Amen. Grief and greed.
Yeah.
Grief and greed are a dangerous intersection.
Yeah. It gets really ugly. I saw my dad had 7 brothers and sisters, and their mom she owned a little apartment house in Queens. I mean, they all stood to gain maybe $40,000, which is, it's nothing to, $40,000 is a lot of money, but the way that they acted, all fighting over their little their $40,000 and who would get $42,000.
Right.
By the time my grandmother passed, they 8 kids. They were sitting on separate sides of the aisle, and unfortunately, she didn't have her stuff in place until it was kind of too late. So that is, I really love that, and I hope that's kind of what everyone takes from here, including myself, is go get it in place.
Well, and Sarah, I will tell you, this is how I run my practice. It's very conversational. It's very low key. It's not high pressure, and I'm going to make it easy for you. We're not, if you cry, I'll cry with you, but it's probably not something we're going to cry over. I mean, we're going to get it done, and we're going to move on, and it's going to be simple, and you're going to feel so good when you get it done. Like, oh, look at me adulting and stuff.
Exactly. And then you could breathe. And then I know, like, if my husband tries to, like, keep me plugged in, like, I know, just unplug me. I want it in my thing, unplug me. So at least you can go forward knowing. But I mean, more for me personally is the kid thing. Like, what's going to happen to them? So, okay. So we got that out of the way. So tell me, what of your transactions, and I know you probably have like privileged stuff, whatever, but which of your transactions that you can talk about has kind of been the most memorable for you?
Yeah. I knew for some reason, as soon as you started saying that question, I'm like, she's going to ask me about my wonky stuff.
So it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's like Jerry Springer up in here. We have one, that not too long ago where, and it's almost always a dead guy, but we had boyfriend and girlfriend own a house as joint with the right of survivorship. Boyfriend moves out and moves to New York, gets a new girlfriend. Girlfriend stays in the house, moves her boyfriend in. Boyfriend in New York dies. Girlfriend in the house dies. New boyfriend is living in the house. What on earth do we do? So we're unraveling that, and we've got to do timelines and family trees and all of that. I had one where there were 8 children, and one of them was MIA. I'm fairly certain she was addicted and homeless. We had so much trouble finding her, and I had one who absolutely would not cash his check. Like, he's like, I don't need the $32,000. I'm like, okay, well then donate it. But you got to cash this check. But getting 8 people who did not like each other into the room to sign, it's always that. And then, of course, when somebody shows up, well, I'm married, but it ain't to him. Well, who is he and where's your husband? Those are always fun.
It's crazy. It's almost like people don't realize, people think of marriage sometimes in terms of like the period of time that they're living together,
Right.
instead of like the actual contractual part of it. I went on a listing appointment once, and it was from a Facebook ad. So it was, a stranger.
Yeah.
And I go to this lady's house, and she tells me, she, her kids had helped her to purchase this house, right?
Yeah.
But she was married, but she's like, oh, he left 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And
I'm
I'm
not
like,
sure who he is.
well, yeah. She's like, I don't, and I'm like, yeah, but he's gonna find out he owns half of this house now. And I mean, they were so mad. They never even thought,
Yeah.
for her to split before
Right.
she did that. But oh my gosh, it just,
Yeah.
there's so much stuff you see. So what do you think? I'm curious too, like when it comes to real estate or real estate law, what do you think are the biggest or the common mistakes you've seen people make when it comes to their real estate buying and selling and holding and all that?
From the general public standpoint or from the realtor standpoint?
From the general public, well, like the stuff that you see come across your table that turns into like a legal
What
issue.
comes up, as an issue? I think a lot of it is the relationship piece. If you own, and as a let's say single woman, if you own a property and it's just in your name, and then you get married, it's automatic that he has a piece of that property. So do something beforehand to make sure that doesn't happen, because there's lots of stuff we can do beforehand to make sure that doesn't happen. The other thing that I see a lot of is non-married folks, where both of them are going to be on the deed, but only one of them is going to be on the mortgage. I had one young man, almost a decade ago. His girlfriend was very pregnant with his child. It was her fourth child and her fourth baby daddy.
Father.
Yeah, he put her on the deed, and he was the only one on the mortgage. And now, down the road, now I just won't let him. It's not really my call to make, but the mama in me just will not let them.
Right.
But he called several months later and said, "Well, she left me. Can you just take her off the deed?" I'm like, "Well, that's not really how it works. She has to sign to come off the deed now." So, just all those relationship things. When you're in love and everything's good, I get it. You don't want to plan for what happens if things go sideways, but you got to plan for when things go sideways. So that's the biggest one.
Even when you are married, I mean, my first marriage, I was so young. I got married when I was 21, and then we moved down here and bought a house. So when we moved here, I kept my job from up north, and so I was working from home. So I had the historical income to get the mortgage.
Right.
So we bought a townhouse in February. By August, I found out he was cheating on me, but I had that exact problem, even though we were married. So I guess either way, he kind of would have owned it, but he was on the deed, but not on the mortgage. Luckily, it was a fairly clean break. He did the quick claim deed.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell people too, when you're getting into these situations, not specifically as a woman, but usually with the woman, you also have if things fall sideways, you usually have the care of the kids. You're usually going to take over the burden of it. And I'm like, always make sure that if you're getting into this, you have some way to afford that mortgage on your own. Mm-hmm. Because even though it was nice and clean in the way that he signed the quick claim deed, luckily I could afford that mortgage on my own.
Yeah.
Because if not, then what happens? Even if you sell it, like in the case of this older lady I'm telling you about, like even if she sells it, it's not enough to go buy something else, what her proceeds. So there's so many weird things. And then when I bought a house with my now husband, we were not married. And so I wasn't in real estate then, but I basically told our closing attorney, whatever you do, make it so that I can get my ticket out of here. I'm not going to get screwed. We were bringing the same amount of money to the table. And I just, at that point,
Right.
Yeah, I just had to protect myself. So,
Well, and I'm never going to advise somebody to approach real estate or life in general as if, hey, everything's going to go sideways at some point, because 9 times out of 10 it's not. But let's be smart, right? Like, if
yeah,
you're not married, let's not put her on the deed until you do get married, and then you can decide. But yeah, let's just use a little bit of common sense.
yeah,
And
a lot of common sense. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I think this conversation has been super helpful, definitely about the estate planning. Tell us where I don't know if you guys have licenses or whatever, but can anyone across the country work with you to get the estate plan? How does that work?
just North Carolina. Anybody
Okay.
in North Carolina, we can do the work, but
Okay.
nowhere else.
All
Yeah.
right, perfect. And then your class, is that like an online class in person?
No, so that's really just as needed. I do a lot for real estate agencies. If you have a lot of listeners who express an interest, I can hold a class just for those folks. But yeah, it's whenever there's a need, which there's always a need, but
Yeah.
whenever we have enough people that say, hey, I want to come.
You should start recording them and then
I should.
selling them.
I should. You're
Yes.
right.
Just because you need more things to do.
Right.
In your free time.
Right. And all my free time. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Super. Super interesting to me. And so someone said I'm interested in this class, and someone said Happy Monday, ladies. But unfortunately, I can't see their name until I pick up my phone. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy Monday back to you.
Happy Monday.
Yes. I will put in if you're in North Carolina, all of Candace's, the link to her website and how you can do your closings there. They really are a really good group. I love that you guys use Qualia. So
Yeah.
it
That
keeps stuff
portal is
safe.
amazing.
I had one attorney and he wasn't representing my buyers. He was representing buyers I was representing, but he was their attorney in New York on their closing in New York.
Got it.
This guy had a Yahoo account. The
Oh,
attorney had a Yahoo account, and these people were selling a house in New York. It was like 900 something thousand because of court, like a condo.
oh my goodness.
And I was like, guys, your attorney
Oh,
has a Yahoo
that makes my stomach hurt.
Yes, it made me so nervous. I'm like, anything that comes from him, you better tell me. I want to see it. I'm gonna call the office, make sure, because I couldn't believe it.
Ooh, yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, how are you gonna play around? And
Good for you for
yeah.
telling
I
them.
had to tell him, like, guy, G Suite costs $6 a month. Can you please upgrade yourself?
For the love of all that is good and
For
holy,
the
please
love.
don't use Yahoo.
Yes, because that wire fraud makes me so incredible. We could probably be here another 20 minutes just talking about wire fraud, but
Right? Yeah, it's a real thing.
it makes, in one of these realtor groups, there is a person who they were representing the buyers. They had just unfortunately lost one of their children, a baby, and they had 3 other children. So they were selling one house, buying another. The wife got the email, wire the funds. She goes to the bank. It makes me sick just talking about it. She went to the bank to wire $80,000. Gone. And you know how it is. It's so it's so easy to believe. They look so real.
Yeah.
And
Again, though, just a couple of questions, because you don't
yes.
wire funds for a Shepard Law closing to somebody that's not Shepard Law.
Yes. Yeah, I know. But that's the responsibility. And I'm sure this agent, it's almost like, unless you've heard these stories,
Right.
for sure, when you take real estate classes, they do not place enough emphasis on that because
Really?
so I took real estate classes in 2018, 2019. I didn't, they talk about it, but you don't hear people can lose hundreds of thousands of dollars and it's just poof gone.
Well, let me take this opportunity then to tell
Please
your
do.
8,000 followers, please, 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 at the outset, when they're getting ready to wire their funds, anytime there's money changing hands, make sure they just are aware that, hey, somebody's going to try and take your money. It's very, very, very safe to wire funds as long as you wire it to the right folks. Just check and double check and triple check.
And always call, I just tell them, always call, if we have a closing at Shepard, I'm like, call them while you're at the bank. Make sure that that's the right numbers, even though we got this, file with the closing information in a
Yeah.
secure website, whatever. But
Well, and the other thing, Sarah, is the fraudsters are very sophisticated. So they might call your client with a caller ID that says Shepard Law, but it's a different phone number. So don't call back at the number on caller ID. Call back on the number that's on our website. That's where, and
yet another thing, yet
yeah,
another
well,
thing to add to my list, because I didn't even
well,
think
and
of that.
somebody spoofed one of our emails one time. Instead of Rebecca at Shepard Law PLLC, it was Rebecca at Shepard Law PLC. So it looked legit. So just always double check.
Right. And I keep on top of that stuff, but I got
Yeah.
one for like Wells Fargo. It looked
So
exactly
accurate.
like Wells Fargo. I'm usually very on top of that stuff. And I clicked on it. Luckily, as soon as I clicked, I was like, oh God, I don't think I should have clicked. And luckily I called Wells Fargo. I froze my stuff. So
Yeah.
it was fine. But I was like, man, I'm on top of this stuff and this could happen.
Right.
So
good for you.
Imagine,
well, especially your older clients. Whew.
Yes.
They get targeted a lot.
So there's been stuff on our local news about things that people have been doing to spoof like the older clients, like saying that their grandson is in jail,
Right.
$75,000, and
it's gross, and they're going to get what's coming to them. I have actually told somebody that was trying to scam me, and I'm too sophisticated to be scammed. I'm like, you're going to hell. You're going to answer for this someday. This is not going to end well for you.
Appreciate that burning of fire.
That's right.
But yeah, it is. It's a scary, scary world out there. But just educate your clients for sure, and keep up. It's important. Like even if they're outside of North Carolina, so they're not able to work with you because this group is kind of national. But find an attorney that you really love working with and that is going to educate you so that you can educate the consumer.
Well, and somebody that you can pick up the phone and speak to is always good. Yeah, I have a question and I need an answer.
Yeah, literally, you are one of the only, I think, lawyers that I've been able to do that with. I had a guy that was, his wife had unfortunately passed in the home. She bought it before him, but they got married. And I was nervous about, because she didn't leave it to him or whatever, but I was just nervous how it all worked.
Right.
And I think you were able to be like, no, this is fine. And, that was a few years back. But find yourself an attorney that you can do that with. That's really important. So, well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's fun talking to you.
Yes. And if you're in North Carolina, you know who to call. Candace at Shepard Law. Someone put it right back in. Yeah. And we'll put in all her information so you can find them and start working with them and get your coffee there. I mean, they have every flavor on the Keurig. All right. Well, have a great Monday.
You too.
Thank you so much. I'll see
Bye.
you soon. Bye.